This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Thank you all for coming. CPA meeting for January. First topic is the approval of the minutes of 12:15. They were in the package. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from 12:15.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie, roll call.
Dan.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Jessica.
I wasn't here.
John.
Yes.
Andy.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Jay.
Aye.
Ken.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
All right. 7 in favor and 2 abstentions.
You know, I'm going to jump ahead to the agenda because it's kind of ridiculous that we're going through business. And the first topic, once we get to the discussion item, is welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Ken, can I pronounce this right? Avecchia?
Iavecchia, that's pretty close.
Iavecchia.
Yeah.
Is replacing Harry Schuman, which is
No one can replace.
Impossible.
No one can replace Harry.
well, he'll do the best he can. He is the planning board member designee.
Right.
So thank you for coming, Ken. And we
great
hope
to
we
be
don't
here.
scare you away.
No.
We'll just keep Jessica from asking those questions.
I think it's you or nothing, yeah.
Anyway,
Dan, I do feel like at the same time we should put it in the minutes to thank Harry
Yes,
for his
absolutely.
many years
thank you. That's
on
an
the
excellent
CPA.
statement. We appreciate his efforts. And as I said to Jessica before the meeting started, Harry brought an old world history, knowing of Easthampton's history to our work. And I thought many times it was very helpful to know
Absolutely.
what happened in the past. And
Yeah.
we don't want to
And we should recognize
Thanks, Harry.
his work on the Historic Commission as well. He was served on Historic Commission for years.
Oh, good. Thank you. We don't have any public here, public speak. City officials. Do you have anything, Jamie?
So we did get the second round match from the state.
Oh, do you want me to put that up? What you?
Sure.
Give me a second. Share my screen.
Did Harry predate you?
Not what I wanted to do.
You what? Did he predate you on this committee?
Yeah, he's the oldest member of that committee.
I wonder, did anybody know what year he started?
Sure when I was.
Dan doesn't go back even further? I'm not further than Harry, but that must be up there.
I think I'm the
think
oldest.
Harry was on
the longest one.
Greg is now the longest.
I think Harry was on the committee when I started,
Yeah.
Which was when?
2012.
Wow, so yeah, 11 years.
Somebody refresh me. How do I get this bigger?
You zoom it in.
Yeah, I did it with my fingers.
When you were here.
So it worked though.
So we had received an extra 90,523 from the 20 million that was set aside from the state budget surplus. So that brings the total for the FY22 match to 421,000.
What line should we be looking at?
So you can look at that green highlighted line.
Okay.
So that's a 68.9% match. You can see that total match for all the municipalities in the state was about 84 million with an average of 43% match. So because this Easthampton has adopted the 3% CPA rate, we get additional funding rounds that the other communities who have not adopted up to the 3% don't get. So that's why our match is always higher than what the state average is.
Does lower match mean fewer funding rounds? Is that?
So if you adopted at the 3%, you get the if you scroll up a little bit, you get everyone gets the round 1 distribution, the 30. What we got is 30.3%, and if you did the up to 3%, you get the round 2 equity distribution and the round 3 surplus distribution. But any community that did not adopt at the 3% does not get those extra 2 funding rounds. And then I'm not exactly sure how it worked with the extra 20 million. I think that went to all the communities, but it was not evenly split to all the communities. you can see that we received about 15% match.
Now, does this
on that.
include that extra money they got, the state, the 20 million?
Yeah, that's the 90.
That's why this went up.
Yes.
That's the what, the 90? Oh, there it is, the
Exactly.
90,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Just drops down. It's
Well, because everybody got this.
So we got more money than we budgeted for.
like the
Yes.
This is FY 20, this is FY 23 money that we can spend.
No, it's FY23 money that we can't spend because we only budgeted for 185,000 in state match. We estimated a 31% match. So
So that money comes into play for next year.
correct,
It becomes like in the city budgeting, they call it free cash because it's excess revenue.
right? So we received an extra 235,000 that we budgeted.
But
because
we didn't know we were
didn't-
gonna get that state surplus.
Exactly. So we typically budget the what we expect to get from the state low, and then when we get the extra money, it sits in the accounts for 6 months until the auditors certify the books and close the books for the year.
And then
We get
next
it.
year,
It'll
that
go
money
to-
becomes
It goes to
something
the
we can
it goes to
spend.
the undesignated.
So it's kind of like, I look at it like savings. If it's excess revenue, it's like saving for next year. We can't spend it in this fiscal year, but we know it's gonna be there for next fiscal year.
Right.
Okay, anything else on this one? Or any other items?
I just want to point out, if I can, for Ken too, this 70% or close to 70% match it's great.
Mhm.
And it's like the second highest match that, if I'm reading this correctly, that we've gotten since
They promised us
fiscal
100%.
yeah, since 13.
Pass this and you'll
13
get
years ago.
100% match.
So, I mean, it was only that fiscal 14 at 93% or whatever, but all these other ones are really closer to 50% or below.
Right.
So the fact that we're back up to, I guess last year was good. Yeah.
Right, and so you'll
Still.
But 70% is very, it's where we want to be.
right, and the years that we went up above 40% were the years that there was extra money from the state, the $20 million in the surplus. So we can't really guarantee that the revenues from the registries of deed don't give us those 100% matches that we were promised. So hopefully we keep having surpluses, and hopefully that keeps getting.
Well,
given
according to my
CPA.
friend, Mr. Peak, who's an economist who works with the state, don't count your chickens. A
Yep.
recession is coming. I don't know what that means. It's amazing to me we get the match because it's based on real estate, and real estate is down.
Yep.
What's different is when they do sell a house, it's a lot more expensive. So isn't that kind of the balance there?
Well, as a Canton realtor, realtors I know, so it's not down.
I'm a new realtor, but
Okay.
I've seen the asking price and what they actually get down to about 5%. And that's what I've been monitoring, so. But you're right, they're up.
Down about 5% from,
From
Over
the,
asking price,
Oh.
right? Is that what you mean?
no, it's the asking price and then what they actually get is 5% below that asking price. So,
There was a recent article in the Gazette this week about the housing market. So I encourage you to go look at that because it talks about how the interest rates are playing into
Right.
Oh,
it
okay.
and how it's impacting pricing, but pricing's kind of staying stagnant for now, but the amount of sales is not.
Okay, account balances. I have nothing except to ask where we are with the rent relief program. Is that done?
Completely.
And we have nothing open, really.
So I've not.
Nothing's changed since the last one.
I can't say.
There she
Um,
is. Her little-
I have not been receiving the reports that I need to provide you with the reports. I honestly don't know. We have about 1.6 million in the designated account, but
We have been trying to get with the auditor, Jamie and I, to get us an up-to-date accounting of where we are in our spending and our budget, but unfortunately that's all behind a little bit. So we hope next month we'll have it up to date. A lot of it has to do with it's complicated and I have no idea. I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn this on. Okay. Moving on, we've already introduced our new member. Oh, committee elections. Anybody want to do this, job?
You're so good, Dan.
Figure.
A motion to elect Danvers as chair.
Second.
Not it.
All right. I'll accept. You need to know something. This is my last year on the city council.
Okay.
I've already planned that years in advance. Nothing that's recently happened had anything to do with it. 27 years is enough. But if I could do something and stay on this committee, but maybe I'll join the planning board and bump Ken off. No, because that's a board, that's a committee I do not want to be in. Anyway, I would love to be back here someday in the future, but yes, I'll be chair for my final year. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we have a motion on the floor to elect yours truly chair. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie?
Let's see. Andy,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Greg.
I thought maybe you were hesitating.
He's thinking about it.
No.
And
I just
John?
want to look at him.
John?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Scott, aren't you vice chair? I keep forgetting.
I am. I ran one meeting in your absence.
He's experienced. We need a motion.
I nominate Scott to be vice chair.
Second.
Go for it.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie?
Okay. Let's go around again. Andy,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Joe,
Yes.
Jessica,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
and John.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you.
item is the FY24 budget. We all have this sheet in front of us. Jamie put this together quickly. It can be updated at the next meeting. What we don't have is accurate figures. If you look at the bottom, total estimated revenue, local tax, she's basing it on her own. I don't know, let you explain
So
it.
the local tax revenue estimated at $635,000 is probably lower than what we will actually receive. If you look back to the 2023 adjusted budget, I have a number in there for $630,000, which is what we received in taxes for the first half of this fiscal year, and then just doubled it. So that number could be off. So I didn't want to use that as the starting number. So I went back to the 2022 revenues and just increase that by 2.5% twice, which is a little bit higher than the 635, but it's a conservative number to make sure we don't spend more than we actually will receive, because that would be a problem.
So what's our total match for next year, you estimate?
So I'm estimating around a 30% first round match and a 30% second round match, but because we don't know what those numbers are going to be, I'm just
So you're saying 60% overall?
60% overall, but I'm only putting 30% into the budget.
Oh,
So you'll see that 635 plus the first round match, the 195, would get us to $830,000 for the budget. And then if you keep going down, you'll see that there's another $195,000 that I'm not including in the budget. So if the real estate market, doesn't,
tanks.
yeah, or if we don't get a extra, there's not surplus budget funding from the governor, we'll be okay. This year, when it was uncertain whether or not we would have that 20 million, what I put in for the 185 was actually we put in for 185 and we actually got 185,293 in that first round. So had we not received the additional 20 million, we would have been okay.
I have no problem with conservatively estimating our state match. Again, we get more, we're gonna keep the money. It's not like we're losing money. just we don't get to spend it next fiscal year. What's incredible to me, and I said this right at the top, is that potential total CPA revenue, $1,025,000, and that's a conservative estimate. That's incredible. And that's in 1 year. If you look at the top, Burns is interested in this, I'm sure. Line OT8 second floor construction retained city match. We're still going to do that. When we ever get to the bonding, maybe we bond less. Or, from what I understand of the bonding conversations, if the bond happens after January 1st of a fiscal year, the first payment is until the next July. So it's in the next fiscal year. So even though this becomes part of the budget, the city's budget, July 1st of this fiscal year, we may not need it to pay a bond. And we'll get to city space in a minute, but that's why we want to do that, because the less we bond, the less we pay in interest and all that. So I have no problem with that. It is something we would continue to do.
You'll see the required set-asides are a little bit higher than what we're only required to set aside 10% for open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. I put in a number of 120,000, which is about 11.
Whoever just joined, you need to shut off your microphone. Thank you.
So the 120,000 is about 11.7%, which, again, if we end up getting a lot more revenue, which has happened, we won't have to go back and readjust those set-asides to make the to comply with state law. So this would allow us to go up to about 1.2 million in total revenue if we get significantly higher money from taxes, or again, if the state match comes in significantly higher than what we would expect.
We allowed, let's say we got a lot more revenue, we're allowed to readjust those figures. Well, we don't have to, because that revenue doesn't, like this year, we got more state match than we thought we would. So they can't penalize us for not putting in the correct proposed matches, because we didn't know we were gonna get that match, right?
I've gone back and forth. The law, the CPA regulation's unclear. It says that you have to spend or set aside 10% of your total revenue that received in the year. And when I've talked to the auditors about this, DOR says you make a good faith estimate to comply, and they won't penalize you if you actually take in more than you expect. So by budgeting higher for that, we are making a good faith estimate to comply. So we shouldn't have to come back, even if we get, a little bit more than.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? What I think I want to do. Oh, great.
I do have a quick question. So, just so I understand this, the balance above, if we have revenue coming in that's beyond what we budgeted, does that roll over then? Does it roll over to the next year's budget?
Yeah, so at
the number at the bottom of this sheet, does that show up? Am I thinking about this the right way? Is that like, whatever the bottom number, does that roll into the next column for a lot of these years?
No,
or?
because what I'm not showing here is the undesignated fund account balance.
Oh, okay, all right, yep.
Because that undesignated fund balance is everything that's left over from all the prior fiscal years. So we have about 1.6 million. So anything that we receive above what we budget will go into the undesignated account at the end of the fiscal year after the books close.
We have to get.
We don't have to budget for it in order.
We don't
for
have,
it.
exactly.
We'll go straight to the undesignated
exactly.
account. Okay,
and similarly, like anything that's not spent in salary or expenses or the reserve fund, all of that also closes to the undesignated fund at the end of the year.
Okay.
So
Yes, Scott.
just a quick question on this. So, but do we typically spend our 10% from each category so that Did those ever roll over?
No, those,
Because they have to stay within that category, right?
right, and so what I'm showing is what we're budgeting, I'm not showing what's in those accounts.
Yeah.
So currently,
Right, I know it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
now that you say that, I'm like, I can picture the thing. Yeah.
We
But
typically
often
spend
we-
those down first.
Yeah.
So if we have a historic preservation,
Right.
she takes the money out of that account
To
first.
make sure that comes in.
Right.
and so, I mean, in the past years, we typically spend, you know, we'll do the open space and the historic preservation and affordable housing will roll over. And then next year we'll have like a big affordable housing project and that'll bring that set asides down. And
Yeah,
So-
okay.
Let's hope we do.
but we will.
It was an
We have a lot of big
editorial
projects on
comment.
there.
What I wanted to
Thank
say is, and I forgot what it was. Unlike the city budget, the CPA is kind of separate in that city budgets, when we close out the books, if there's extra surplus revenue or there's expenses not used, that turns into free cash. It doesn't roll over. You have to have a council appropriation to move it, like we're about to do that, into other accounts. Our funds, our excesses, our surplus revenue just goes automatically in. It doesn't need anybody else's approval. We get to spend it the next fiscal year, which is good. I mean, I don't want anybody touching the money. Anyway, anything else, Jamie? So what I propose is, since there's some information that Jamie would like to confirm, such as our local tax revenues with the auditor and things like that, that we approve this at the next meeting, at the February meeting. Now I'll talk to the mayor. I know she wants everybody's ideas, but this is fairly straightforward for them. And they don't publish the budget until mid-April or something like that, so we should be fine. But I'd like to have better information. Don't you agree, Jamie?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're not gonna vote on this tonight. It's a draft. 2023 meeting schedule, third Thursday. Is there any change that you proposing? Why is this on the agenda? That's right.
Just at the beginning of the year, people were like, you know, want to move things around.
There
Now's
was
the
a
time.
note on for what, December, there was something that's off, there's 1 month that's not standard.
Yeah, so the December meeting, next December would be, the meeting would typically fall on December 21st, which is very close to that vacation week, so I'm proposing to move it up a week. And then July and August, we never know what people's summer vacation
That's a
schedule are
22
going
meeting.
to look like, so. But if people wanted to decide now that we'll cancel an August meeting or a July meeting, this would be the.
We just never know what people are applying and when they're applying. There's many months that we have nothing on the agenda and the meeting is canceled and it's not July.
I'd rather keep the meeting in
I would
case
just
somebody
keep it.
has something.
Yep.
Because we have a process that's one meeting a month, and if it's a big project, we talk about it the first time.
Yep.
And then the next meeting. You might want to send Ken all the rules, not that we follow them all the time.
So they are in the CPA shared folder.
Okay,
That link, there's,
I'll review them. I know where they are.
like, so they're not in the next meeting, it's not the next meeting, it's I think it's, what do you call it?
Okay, so I want to give you a brief update. We're not going to discuss it tonight on the town clock. We have nothing but good news. The city attorney agreed. The funny thing he said, and I don't know if I said this at the last meeting, but he said, well, because I talked to him at first, I said, well, if the city thinks you own the clock and the church thinks you own the clock, you own the clock. So he wrote an opinion based on all of the evidence that the city owns the clock. And then I approached him with the fact that I didn't want to have some property designation, because we already own the clock, having to go through city hall and city council and everything. So we got a letter of agreement. The reason for this is so that we don't have to go through this again. The next CPA 20 years from now, do we own the clock? This is going to put it in definitive writing. The letter of agreement is between the city and the church. What are the parts of the clock? And the city owns it, and the church agrees to it and stipulations. It also includes a license that allows a member of the city to go in and maintain the clock, say, with a church member present. And that agreement was approved today, and I just got it. It was signed. Thank you, Greg Rowland, for helping us with that. Greg is on the board of the church.
Just to go between, really, yeah.
Well, I didn't know who else to talk to.
So is it in the deed, like? Is it in their deed?
Well, no,
Like
in
everyone's-
1946, if you want to, we bought the clock, apparently, for $4,000.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
from then on, there's been a repair. There was a repairman.
Yep.
That was not budgeted years ago.
Yep, yep, yep.
So all of that happened, and we decided to own the clock. Now,
Okay.
why do we want to own the clock? The anti-aid amendment. It's difficult. We can't give to like a church or a nonprofit funds from the CPA. But if we own the clock, we're not aiding the church. We're fixing our own clock. So that goes out the way. Now, right now, having this agreement done, it's in the hands of the mayor because it's city property now. The mayor is going to decide how to proceed. I'm going to talk to her about it. When will the CPA get involved? How the mayor wants to apply for it. Now, something that your boss brought up, Jeff brought up, was it's a facility, so it might be under the DPW. So we might get an application from the Department of Public Works to fix the clock. Whenever that happens, we will deal with historic preservation and all of that. But right now, I'm going to talk to the mayor. What do we want to do next? But we wanted to wait till the agreement was signed. That just happened. Well, I don't know if you got a copy of that. I'll send it to you. I'll send the agreement to everybody. I'll send the opinion to everybody so everybody understands. But the CPA is out of the loop now because we deal with funding a repair if that's the way the mayor wants to go. I think she does. And she very much, so everybody knows this, she very much wants that clock fixed. So she's on board. So we'll see how it goes. Okay? Anybody have any questions? I mean, I'll send you all the information.
Just a very quick, I'm sure it's in the agreement, but it's spelled out that it's the exterior clock and the interior mechanical workings as well.
I wrote that part. I'll
Okay.
tell you what it is. It's the clock face
Mhm.
and the numerals and everything, and the clock hood on the outside. So there's a little roof if you look at it.
Mhm.
The interior clock works, the mechanics,
Mhm.
the bell,
Mhm.
and any structure that is essential for the clock to function. In other words, if the bell if some structure is broken and the bell can't be used at all, even with this automatic thing that's not a big hammer, we kind of own that. So I believe that's all the elements. We don't own anything else. It's also understood that should the church, let's hope it never happens, decides to no longer exist, we could remove the clock, or we own the clock, so we'd have to decide what to do. We being the city. That's not gonna happen.
Oh, these churches are dying. I don't know what to tell you.
You're kidding, right? You go through all this, no more clock.
A lot of these old New England churches, I mean, Easthampton Church is, aging, so who knows what happens a generation or
Tough
two
time to
from
be in
now.
faith these days.
I just want to be honest,
No, okay.
I hope not. It's
Well,
let's hope not. It's a good congregation and a good church, right in the center of town. But that's how things go sometimes.
So that's everything on the agenda. No. Hi, Burns.
Hello.
Burns, you want to sit at the head of the table so I don't have to strain to see you?
Oh, wait, turn this way. Does that work?
Okay, as long as Scott's, okay.
I have a direct view chair with me. I feel so special. I really know how to make a person feel welcome. 25%.
I am going to share the document.
I have something else I just wanted to show some updates to the phase 1 project.
Okay, then I have to make you have to join the meeting.
I did.
Oh,
I
well,
was
you're way ahead of
wondering
me,
how it
okay.
now it sounds. Sorry about that, Jimmy.
That might have been you, okay.
I hope that didn't hurt your ears.
Wait a minute, I gotta find where's people? Your city space?
That's me. One and only.
Well, it doesn't say Burns on it. Add as co-host. So now you can, did I do it right? Yes, now you can present. You know how to do that, right? The little arrow at the bottom in the box,
I know, thank you.
and then share your entire screen. You click that, and then you click once you click on the little picture, you click on share. There you go. And then you can just put up any tab you have opened on your computer. So like me, if you can make that a little bigger, that would be great.
How about that?
Okay, so
Best
far,
you can do.
good.
So what I thought I'd do tonight is just give you an update about the phase 1 project, so you can see how we've been moving along. And Mike Kosnick has really been, as you can see here, started off with the RFP with Alon Tierney from Coon Rental Architect. I'm behind the cameras, whereas I love to be. And really, Mike was spearheaded the project, and this happened back in May that the RFPs were released for the project. It's about a $565,000 project, and what I call the non-sexy parts of the project, HVAC and electrical, to really bring the building to where it needs to be for the second floor restoration. So it's really focusing on first floor electrical, HVAC, and as well as just the full systems for the airflow throughout the building. Now, Mike Langers was the bidder that came in, correct?
They were low bid. They acted as the general on the project, so we didn't have to hire a general contractor. Most of it was HVAC work. There was a pretty significant amount of electrical work. We relocated the transformer vault to a new location that meets current code, and that will allow us to add a larger transformer in the next phase to be able to support the building.
Was that picture the transformer that currently exists? Green?
That's a photograph on the left is the transformer that currently existed next to the building. Photograph on the right is the new transformer vault that is located at the site of the old jail. So for those of you that don't have a long history here, there used to be a fairly large jail building attached to the right rear corner of the old town hall. We raised it back in the late 90s because it was sliding down the hill. But we had a reputation in the valley for the worst jail because it had snakes. No one wanted to come to our jail.
Kept crime down.
I was gonna say, it seems like a public safety,
So, Mike, there was, in the photograph on the left, there was some holes drilled in, right?
Yeah, so this was a pretty significant change in the way the power is distributed from the transformer to the building. And there are currently 3 different accounts at that building. There's the building account. There's an account for T-Mobile that's a broadcast tower in the top of the south tower. And there's a meter for the bike rack that's out front. We are preparing the building for an 800 amp service. So currently it has a 400 amp service. That requires a couple of extra conduits to be able to feed different metering. 800 amp metering is very different than conventional electrical metering, and so it required a couple of extra conduits. And also the way we distribute power in the building is going to change. In the next phase is really where the heavier equipment is going to go in to the building to be able to handle the 800 amps. But everything to prepare for that, with the exception of one control board and one major switch, has been installed. So those 2 pieces will go into the basement, and we'll be ready to distribute the power through the entire project, including the upper story.
Downstairs is where most of the work happened, in the basement. And so, it's not very visible except for the heaters that are upstairs.
Yeah. So we took out a 1,000,000 BTU steam boiler.
That was what was on the right.
Yeah, exactly. That boiler actually came from this building in the late 90s when we converted the boilers in this building to high efficiency gas. We took that boiler, we changed the header on it, put it into the old town hall. So it was already about 20 years old. So it's close to 50-year-old boiler that was failing. And we replaced it with two 500,000 BTU high-efficiency gas boilers. We only needed one for this phase of the project. We need both for the final project. But because of the gas regulations, if we didn't maintain the 1 million BTU capacity, we'd have lost it. So we had to install two boilers. They are running essentially as sister boilers. One will run, the other will run. They're keeping about the same amount of time on them. And they go to a heat exchanger, which was that large bunch of pipes that Burns showed in a previous photograph. That silver thing in the middle on the right-hand side is essentially a heat exchanger. So there's large piping coming from boiler circulation pumps, goes to the heat exchanger. There are distribution circulation pumps from that feed the rest of the building. Both pumps are installed. Only one is needed at this time. The second pump will feed the second floor, the final phase. So essentially, we've installed all of the necessary infrastructure to support the full project. In addition to that, we did a lot of HVAC work on the first floor to put heat in all the rooms and to eliminate all the steam boilers and replace them with high-efficiency European-style radiators. So it keeps a similar feel about what the heat distribution looks like, but they run much more efficient and they don't bang nearly as much.
And we also have I don't have a photograph, but we have a G electrical.
There are heat pumps.
Yeah.
There are heat pumps in the 4 primary rooms that will improve the efficiency of air conditioning. So those rooms all had window air conditioners in them, which are notoriously inefficient. And also allows us to utilize electricity on the shoulder seasons, which these days is less expensive than natural gas.
You're talking splits, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Before we move any further, is there anything else you want to add? Okay. So that, if we sort of think back to the fall, when we had a previous conversation about the CPA, we talked about going to commercial architects to get an updated cost estimate, in which they did. And the project as a whole, we'll put up here. So let me see if I can bring this up. It's an $8.6 million project, essentially. And we started off at a $6.9 million project.
Excuse me, Burns, could you go back to what you had? Oh, there you go. Good, thank you.
And so essentially, this is the campaign total cost. The first phase you'll see here, this is what we've completed, the $565,000 project that was funded. We're looking at phase 2. I'll show you a breakdown of phase 2 and what that looks like, and phase 3. So when we got this cost estimate back from Kuhn-Riddle, we said, wow, that's a significant amount more than we had originally planned. We want to keep the momentum going. How can we do that without, without essentially stopping everything for another year? So they figured out a way to break it out into 3 phases total. The first phase we've done. The second phase focuses on the entryway and elevator, which is really exciting because there's 3 things actually. There's also that window that will be moved from the interior and visibly placed in the entryway to the second floor. So the elevator shaft, the entryway, and that window. This is the first floor entryway. I know you've seen this picture before, just to remind you. And these costs, so the overall cost of this project is a $2.2 million project. And we'd like to get this started in March of 2023. Essentially, overall, this is exactly the same project we've been looking at for many years. It's just more money, and we're phasing it out. So also to offset the costs, the inflation costs continuing. We want to keep the project going. It's going to cost more and more the longer we wait to do this project. So it'll be highly visible from the street, getting this elevator in place. And our plan is to then roll right into phase 3, which is the final restoration of the second floor. And it kind of, it works out very well in that sense because the elevator and entryway are external. There's very little that will be done within the second floor space except for that window that's taken out. Mike found a local artisan who knows how to repair the windows. It's a specific style of window in New England stained glass. So we looked around and found a local person to take that on. So it will not disturb the interior of the building. We can continue programming in the building and then move to the second floor. So essentially for this phase 2 budget, it's a little different because when we came to you last year, we talked about bonding for the rest of the project. But this will be phase 2, and it's really up to you as a CPA how you would want to move forward with the match for the funding of phase 2.
Well, just to be clear, we cannot bond until your final match is allowed, is done. So what I think you're proposing, and I'm sure you're about to say this, is using what our retained city match is at right now. And the city council approved that at 1.5.
That is what my records are.
This is a HADO problem, and not a problem, it's just that we have to get to it. But we approved 1.25, or very close to that, as part of the overall 3.5. The part that is, in my view, and I interpret it, the bonding can't be done until City Space has the rest of their money in place for the construction. They are providing a match to this construction. So, in other words, they have to provide a match before we build anything. They are, for this phase. Am I correct on that?
Correct. So we would show a match to continue the work in process in March. So that we have a little bit more to raise for that match, but we're almost there. The needed funds, let's see, for this. So I think you have it in front of you, Dan, right?
What are we talking about?
So, I mean, essentially, the expected CPA funds would be a 1.14 million.
Which is already in the city retained match. We've approved this already. It's not like we have to discuss this any further. We can decide, okay, we can release these funds. We have to get the city council to allow us to transfer that 1.14 from the retained account into the construction account. That's the only, and the question will be, what about the city space match? So hopefully by the time it reaches city council vote, that's done.
That was the plan for March. Yes.
Yeah.
Our goal is March to move forward with the RFP, and we would show that match then.
Okay.
How close are you?
So we have 280,000 left.
On the 1.4 million?
1.14.
No, 1.14.
Okay.
So I have just again, thinking of precedent with other projects, do we always require a 1-to-1 match? No, right? So in this case, is there a reason why we wouldn't want to release the full reserve of the 1.25 if that makes up for their shortage? I don't know what the gap difference is, but if we were to release the full amount, it shrinks their gap and they'd be able to move.
Well, they still have 180,000 to do. Am I correct in my math there?
It would certainly make it a lot easier to move forward with it.
I don't have a problem with Jessica's proposal. I mean, it's a matter of city council understanding that they are providing their.
I don't think everybody agrees, Dan. at this table, so
I'm
I
just,
think it's open for
let me just
discussion.
finish.
Yeah.
As long as city council and the mayor and everybody understands, this has nothing to do with the bonding. The bonding can't happen until the final dollars that City Space needs to raise are in place. But this can happen because we have dollars set aside. From my point of view, having a visible construction in this elevator there will help propel this donations, propel getting more money, because you're actually doing something that people can see.
Absolutely.
That's just my opinion.
Absolutely, and people that we've talked to said this is the right way to go.
Okay.
There are other projects within the region that have waited and are still continuing to, gather inflation costs for their projects. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep this project going.
We also looked at, so traditionally speaking, breaking projects into phases costs more for mobilization. You're bringing contractors in multiple times. In this instance, inflation is much higher than that cost. And also the kind of construction work and the kind of prime contractors are different in all three of these phases. So this was primarily an HVAC project. Upstairs is going to have so phase 3 will have HVAC, but it's going to be a much smaller part of the project, so it'll be a big general contractor for that. Phase 2 is primarily a building construction project. It's building an elevator shaft. That's the prime work. And so even though we're mobilizing different kinds of construction crews each time. And so we don't see the mobilization cost as exceeding, first of all, we don't see it as exceeding current inflation anyway, but we don't see it as adding price to the project.
And no matter when you get to phase 3, you always need that elevator.
We've had a long conversation about what makes the most sense in which phase. Getting access to the second floor is going to be an amazing thing. It'll access actually all elevations in the building. You'll have a ground level entrance, half stop to the first floor, half stop to the basement, full stop to the second floor, another full stop to the balcony. So
ADA accessibility.
Completely.
Absolutely.
That's a selling point. I'm going to open it up to questions and discussion. Anybody?
No concern.
Well, there is a wrench in the works, and that is our auditor and getting the final figures on the retained match. The problem with that is if we try to get this appropriation through to the city council by next Thursday for the February 1st meeting in February, we would have to know what that figure is. Think you could get that? I don't know if she has it.
Well, so to be clear, what happened, the CPA voted last year to put aside $250,000 into the retained city match.
Okay.
And when the budgets were set up, that money was not showing up in the report that I got. But I didn't get that report until November for the first of the year. I met with Hazel, explained what was going on. I just got the December 31st report, and it's still not in there. So currently the accounts show slightly less than the 1.25 million, but it should be 1.25 million. So this is something that is going to take some time for her to figure out, because she has to go back now to the records to figure out why it was.
Let me go back to one statement you just said. Currently there is almost 1.125 in there.
The report that I ran showed it was like 996 or something.
Yeah, but that's $250,000 short of what we should have.
Exactly. So,
Okay, so that's a wrench in the works. So let's do another timeline. Second meeting in February for the city council. It gives Jamie 3 weeks to get Hadel to agree that there's 1.125 in there. When that's done, we can put the appropriation forward, should the CPA committee tonight vote on it. But we can't put it forward for this meeting. Government process sucks. So the next city council gets it, second meeting in February, goes to finance. I'll set a public hearing, because I'm Chair of Finance, for the first meeting in March. Hopefully it's approved by then. In the meantime, and Jamie will tell you this, we need a grant agreement done. You're gonna need to have, I'd love you to do the kind of narrative you just did, write it all up for the city council, but we're not gonna need it for this Thursday because we can't put the appropriation forward until we have accurate figures. So as soon as you can get it, get a narrative, include in the narrative the pictures of what we did. I love seeing the new boilers and what we're doing and et cetera, so that at the finance committee meeting we could explain it all so that city council can see it. So that's part of it. Plus you're gonna have to meet with the city, this is a city building, meet with Mike, meet with the mayor and figure out how that's gonna go forward. But that's after the money's approved, I imagine. I don't know. Normally the timeline would be then, okay?
We're going to begin design next month.
Okay, whatever.
Well, it's got to be designed whether or not you guys provide funding or not, so.
Okay, Scott.
Just so, in thinking about it in phases and thinking of funding instead of, this phase being not bonded, but saying, here's $1.25 million. If, and I fully support the whole project, I want to see the whole project happen. If phase 3 never happens, what are we, like, what do we have? We have, like, what is this access on the second, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I want to be able to defend, yes, I think this is worth spending. If phase 3 was not to happen, I want to feel like this is worth defending for what it is. And I guess what's up there now, like what could be envisioned? Does that make, you get what I'm trying to?
It's a bridge to nowhere.
Get it? Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to like, right.
See, I kind of look at it as we're gonna, you're asking me, I look at this project as if I build it, they will come.
That's how I look at it.
But what if they don't?
What if they don't? And so like what?
That's my only concern.
So right now, in order, if we had an elevator, the work that would have to be done to make the second floor usable without consulting the building department and the architect, in my opinion, is extension of the fire suppression system, the sprinkler system, installation of fire alarms, the strobes, and restrooms. And plumbing is already upstairs for restrooms. There were 2 single restrooms. I don't even know if that would be a code issue because there are ample restrooms in the building, just not on that floor.
Right.
But code would require us to bring the remainder of the sprinkler system to that floor. All the risers are in, all the feeds are in. What's not in are the laterals. So that it would be a relatively modest project. I would be able to give you an estimate. Right. And then fire alarm, phase 2 is going to put in the new alarm controller. So right now we've maxed out the ability of the fire alarm in that building. And so it needs to be paneled, essentially, so we can have more circuits. We're going to do that in phase 2. So it would really mean just wiring and installing the necessary devices in the room and extending the sprinkler system. And if we didn't need restrooms, that would be the extent of it. That floor would be useful.
Right. So then it would be, I mean,
it would be
not the theater. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be the goal.
Capacity for use of the space with that fire safety measures
Because the HVAC is done in there.
There is no heat on that floor.
What I'm saying is you put in
There's a boiler. We could,
so
we could put in radiation.
Worst comes to worst and we wanted to do what you just said and make the room usable until we could get phase 3 done, you would have to do something for HVAC, wouldn't you?
So
there hasn't been heat in that building in my lifetime on the second floor.
Yeah, but I'm just asking,
So,
wouldn't you have to?
I believe you'd probably have to put in radiation if you wanted to use it in the winter. I don't know if it would be useful to use in the summer, given the heat. And it would be a waste of money, I think, to put in an air conditioning system in the building, in that room until we
But the intention is to go to phase 3 and to build it and they will come. I will tell you, we at City Space, with the CPA support, restored the first floor blue room. We have had over 100 inquiries in less than a year, over 75 performances in the space. We have communities of all shapes and sizes
I
coming
get
in
it.
and out from
I understand what you're saying.
Springfield up to
Mhm.
Turner's Falls. So I think it's a no-brainer that space will be used when we can use it.
But you're still a couple $100,000 short of hitting a match with us.
We believe in you and this project.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the question. I think there's, we're on a potential cusp of a recession. The future is unknown. I think it's just a valid question to consider what happens if we fund phase 2 and then phase 3 takes longer, right? And what I'm hearing is that the upstairs is essentially, without the fire code and so forth, it's off limits until that small amount of work can be done to make it usable, right? I think it's a great idea to break it into phases. I think what you've done is fantastic, and I think it moves the project forward. So I just want to congratulate you on doing that. I think this was the right approach, but there is a risk involved in, doing phase 2, and what's the timeline for phase 3, either for fundraising or for costs, or, there's just a lot of uncertainty in the economy, and I think people are thinking about it.
Sure. There's also that building, ever since I have been here and before, there have been attempts to try to put in an elevator. And it has yet to be done. And this would be a big feat for that building to move it forward for accessibility.
And it's the city committing to its own building.
Yes.
And the future of this building, and I just want the committee to hear that. I think it's important.
That's a good point.
If we really think this is a community building over the long run, I do think this is an important, commitment to make. So I think it's we're heading in the right direction. I just wanted to, sort of echo Scott's concern about what happens with.
There's always
the way
risk.
that funding.
But we don't progress in this country without taking some risk. And in this case, in the city. But I want to say, from a political point of view, we can point at something physical that has been done. And that, to me, will really spur action at the state level, especially, to get more money to city space. I think it's a hugely visible thing that we can point at. Look we're doing this. We need a little more here. And also, it helps with private donation. So I think it's the right way to go. Is there a risk that we may have an empty space for 2 or 3, 5 years? I don't care if it's 5 years, if it gets done. I don't think so. I think with City Space's history, you ran into something you didn't expect, and a huge inflationary issue. But that doesn't mean you guys aren't as passionate about it as you always were. And I think that speaks to you getting it done. It may take a little longer, and I think you recognize that. You wanted to start building phase 3. Phase 2 was the whole thing this year. Now you know you can't. But it's better to work with reality than, if you didn't get this new estimate from Kuhn Riddle, you'd be guessing, and you can't proceed that way. You have to know what you're up against.
And I will have to say that amount, even though it's much more money, it is not as much as we've seen other projects within the Region Rise. You see projects go from 4 to 12 million to 21 million, and
With the Amherst School project.
absolutely. So, we feel really confident in the cost estimator, and also with the phase 1 project, we really have those RFPs come in very close to what we had originally estimated, which is just unheard of right now. So, we feel like we have a good team. Mike is just so wonderful at overseeing this project. Kuhn Riddle really gets it. We have so many great, fabulous people on our board that are looking at all of the aspects of the project. So I think that, we are on the right trajectory, but we want to make this next step happen. Now, I will say that our hope for the phase 3 is to really galvanize state funding. we wanna see state funding like that has come forward for the Northampton Center for the Arts and the Victory Theater. We want, this is the next project where that state funding should come forward. The city has ponied up a significant amount of money for this project, the CPA. The state should come forward too. They have given $200,000 to this project, which is just wonderful, but it is not enough.
That's nothing. Sorry.
I just have a couple questions. What's the construction timeline for phase 2? Like how many months?
12 to 18.
Okay.
I'm thinking on the longer side. We'll probably go out to bid in late April or May. Have bid openings, hopefully award a contract by the end of June. Get somebody started this summer. I think that their earthwork will move pretty quickly. But I don't know about lead time on the elevator. You know, it's an odd elevator. It's going to have the door on at 90 degrees, not at 180, so not a walk-through, not a single door. So that's going to have to be custom. So I think there'll be some lead time in that. It's going to be 2.5 months or so just to get the window redone. But right here at the Paragon Building on Pleasant Street, great expertise. So I'm going to visit him tomorrow.
I'm very happy you got a local person, Mike. That's fantastic.
And then a second question, just because I'm trying to do the math here quickly, looking at this. So the phase 3 cost is around 5.8 million at this point. Is that right? If I'm deducting.
Approximately, I have the full. Dan, I don't know if you, I'm gonna take this off the screen. I don't know if you have the full.
I'm just curious, the phase 3. So if
You mean that big breakout you gave us?
Cost estimate, yes.
Can you, you have to stop sharing.
Fundraising and phase, you know, what the phase 3 is, using the remainder of the CPA money, and then how much you have left to fundraise or for the state.
It's like 5.6, 4.7 for phase 3.
Right. And then if you take out, if CPA put in 1.1, that would leave us, because we made a $3 million commitment, right?
We made a $3.5 million.
Oh, more than I thought.
We already gave them $250 for the first phase.
Right.
We committed to another 1.25, moving some money from undesignated into retained city match when we approved the bonding, and we approved $2 million. So we have in our coffers now, rounding out, $3,250,000. $2 million of which is bonding, 1.25 is cash.
But if we use that cash earlier.
Now, it doesn't change anything. We still have the $2 million approved by the city council.
For bonding, okay.
But that is contingent on City Spaces match, which gives them plenty of time.
4.6, yeah. Okay, so 4.6 is phase 3. Minus the 2 million bonded, so that gives you 2.6 that you're looking to fundraise, is that right? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Raise one way or the other.
To the state grants, whatever. Okay. And you'll have basically 18 months to do that. Right.
2, 3.
That's why I asked the construction timeline.
How do we know when
to
they
get
have
a
that?
sense of the timing and when the funds would be coming in and when you would need them then.
Probably have a big lottery, you didn't say.
Yeah, we'll probably get it. We won't have to waste it.
I don't think this.
So,
and so just to give you an idea of what does our fundraising look like, we have a capital campaign team that we've established this year. It includes Allison Keller, who's a local resident who's donated to the campaign and said, I want to be a part of this. Tara Brewster, who is a community relations person, manager at Greenfield Savings Bank, is right on board with this project. Carol Abbey Smith is part of the capital campaign, part of the City Space Board, as am I. We are meeting with people several times a week to show the building. We're reaching out to major donors constantly, and we are selling this project all the time. So when we look for those donors, that's how we're doing it, and it's just one-on-one cultivation, and that's fundraising one-on-one. We're also applying for a Massachusetts Cultural Council Cultural Facilities Fund, which we just expended from this first project, which is one of the reasons why we phased out the project, so we can then apply again. It does have a cap of $200,000 that would go towards this phase one. So that funding would then be replenished essentially.
The ARPA funds that you can try to snag, those funds have to be closed and like they have to be dedicated and on their way out of their accounts by the end of 2024 and completely closed out by 2026. So the train is kind of leaving the station now. Is the time to, isn't that how the Victory Theater, didn't they get a slug of ARPA?
We did,
Yeah.
we did. That was
They also got $2 million from their city.
Well, that was through ARPA funding,
Okay.
but through the city.
We don't, the city doesn't have that much, this city doesn't have that much ARPA funding.
We know that, and we have plenty of places for it.
But the state has.
I'm talking
yeah.
wastewater treatment plants, things like that. Anyway, Scott.
A couple quick things. The exterior where there's the current netting, would that be part of phase two?
Do you know the history of that?
I mean, I remember we voted on it, but like.
Briefly, so when we took on a long-term lease with the city, we assessed the building as a whole. We took a 44-year lease with the city, and we found out that there was brownstone and limestone deteriorating.
Right.
It's a $1 million project, and the part of this project is the three-phase project for the second floor performing arts and community space is feasibly able to get mass historic credits. We've retained $550,000 so far, so we apply each month as the price of this project increases. They said we should get about 700, 800,000. It should increase now, so that will go directly back into the facade of the building.
We won't earn those credits until the project is done. And so when the project's completed, we'll then be able to sell those credits to a taxable entity for hopefully 90 or 93 cents on the dollar if we're lucky. And that'll give us cash. But even if we get 90 cents on a dollar, if we end up with $900,000 worth of credits, hopefully we'll end up with $800,000 in cash.
I guess what I'm sorry if I didn't quite get when would that work occur to fix the facade? I guess what I'm looking at is like, do we want to? I think it might be a bad look for us to spend over $1 million, but not have that part fixed. Whereas visibly, like, oh, you spent all this money on the elevator, but that part's still.
That is not part of the second floor restoration project.
So that has nothing. There's
nothing to do with this.
That's building.
So who?
And that, it sounds like that wouldn't get fixed until the tax credits come in at the end of phase two.
At the end of phase
three.
A few years down the road, Scott.
Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate, but that's the funding model that they have. Historic tax credits take time to get.
Right.
Well,
in some ways, that actually is. I mean, that's sort of more defensible, right? That it's like we need to like this. We have this for the facade. We need to make this keep this project going,
so we can fix
can fix that. Like that's how to answer that, right? I mean, it'd be like, yes, we want to fix that, and we have a way that is very financially feasible to do that, and we need to get there. So, and you said that it was a 44-year lease, and I want to echo what Greg said too. That like. My question is just to understand it further and to know, and that I think, especially because it's a lease of a city building, the city owns the building. To say, look, as a city, we're investing in making this city building accessible for everybody in our city, and we're lucky enough to have leased this to partners that are working to be able to fundraise to make all this happen. I think is a really fortunate place to be. So thank you.
Really great. I don't see a budget in here for the project manager, and I think that's fantastic. I'm not paying him. Thank you.
Yeah,
well, he's managed a school and a few other projects, so.
Safety.
Yep. You know what?
Sorry, I had one more point. That one more question I had, which was
in the budget.
When we talk about so last thing we talk about 1.25. Retained. I'm looking at this budget, at least that bottom line, and Jamie, this is probably a question for you. because two of those columns are 2023. So essentially those are the same, right? I mean, it's proposed and adjusted, but they only count once. So if we look to 2024, we're really only looking at $1 million, including this coming year.
No.
What you're not seeing here, these are just the budget appropriations. What you're not seeing here.
Can you
are
stop sharing, please?
The supplemental appropriations that were done in previous years. So in 2021, we had, in 2019 and 2020, there were two votes to set aside $250,000 into this, like, we're just keeping
Yeah, we didn't really,
the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so in 2021, there was a budget appropriation of $250,000 plus this committee formally moved those $500,000 like earmarks into as a supplemental appropriation in there. So you wouldn't see those in here because we're just looking at what was budgeted, not what was supplemental.
So what was initially set aside those first 2 years were not budgeted.
They were earmarked.
They were earmarked.
Got it. But essentially through 2023, not counting 2024, there's 1.25.
That's what my numbers say, but that's not
right. I know that's a different issue, but I just wanted to understand why this didn't add up to that, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Because then we voted to then automatically move the money every year rather than do it as a one-time.
Totally.
We did twice.
And we're saving it, basically, to reduce the bond.
I was just like,
by having that 1.25 in there, we reduced the cost of this project interest-wise and then immensely. I'm looking at an older account sheet. OTH second floor city match this was at July 1st, 2022. I'm sorry, it's not telling me what I wanted to tell me, so forget what I just said. We gotta get the accounts. That's all there is to it. As soon as we can, I'll provide it to you. But let's review. City Space is asking us to ask the City Council to transfer 1.1416 from the retained city match into the construction account. There's a possibility that we could increase that to 1.25, which I'm in favor of. And I would ask you to vote that in, but that's up to you. We cannot do anything until poor Jamie gets the final figures. So that means that this won't get on the City Council's radar until the second meeting in February. Because the first meeting in February's packet has to be in by next Thursday. So we're looking at 3 weeks. But that gives Jamie time to get the accounts up to date, and I'll write Hadel and say we really need to know. And it should be 1.25. I don't know why.
Yeah, and
she's got a lot on her plate though, so.
Well, and that's the problem, is that I haven't been able to get time because she's dealing with bigger issues of like free cash.
Yes, free cash. I don't want to talk about free cash right now. Anyway, so there's 2 votes tonight. Do we want to increase it to 1.25? Number 1. Number 2, do we want to allow this to move forward to the City Council?
Well, I think we need those numbers before we can vote on a dollar amount. If we don't have 1.25 because the auditor thinks we only have 1.1, why vote? You know,
that would delay the project a whole month. Because we can't, we don't.
I thought we were, okay.
We could vote 1.146 tonight.
Well, wait, no, I thought we could only vote 9
something.
What I have is.
But we could vote on 1.25 contingent on it being available. If we put that into the motion and we find out it's not, then we have to come back to the table in the February meeting.
If it hasn't already been corrected, there's a million, what I was able to print out for a report shows $1 million in the retained account.
So we have to put the 250 in.
And Hadel may have already done that, but my report is, I don't have access to the same reports software that does, so
Well, do you understand
we can at
my
minimum
feeling
do
on
a
the
million.
motion, Jess? Contingent on whether that money's available? And if it's not available, we have to come back to
I
the
mean,
drawing.
it should be there because
I know it should be there because I know we voted it.
I'd like if, how the other committee members, their comfort level on that.
I'm a little bit with you, but at the same time, it's not like this. It's not like this money doesn't exist in undesignated or some other location.
That's right.
So it's not like we're committing,
That's true. It can get
dollars.
shifted
This
over.
is
Yeah.
this is the sort of set aside account.
Yeah, right.
But if we need it, I mean,
Well, if Hadel doesn't agree,
I feel like a conditional approval is fine,
Yep.
given that it's not like we're down to our
I agree, I
last
just wanted to
dollar
make sure
here.
everybody else was comfortable with
Yeah,
it at
no.
the table. I don't want to be the only one speaking, so.
And the other part of it is, well, Mike, you had your hand up.
Maybe it's not the right time to mention it, but I think there's a small amount of money in some other account somewhere for this project.
You have design money in
there's
there.
a small amount of design money left from.
For phase one.
Yeah, but don't you need design money?
We spent design money out of the construction money, so maybe I should just work with Jamie to see how we can access that.
Well, you shouldn't have to. Let's put it that way, okay? I'm pretty confident that I can convince Hadel, wait a minute, Hadel, I voted on it, I put it forward. There's $250 missing here. And I'm pretty confident that Jamie's right, it's gonna be there. But if worse comes to worse, we would have to come back and move money from undesignated to get it up to 1.25.
And all the committee members are comfortable with the 1.25? Because I wasn't,
I was curious about it just because, you sounded confident to have the money by March with your initial number of 1.146. So
Your match, your extra 180 or whatever you need.
yeah, so I guess I'm, and I assume that by the CPA approving the 1.146, that would be further momentum and fundraising and getting across the line. So I'm just kind of curious if you could just talk to that, do you feel confident in bridging, that 1 point?
280 or the 180?
It's gonna be 180 now.
The 280, I mean, is that, because on some level, you came with this number of 1.146.
Absolutely.
Are you wanting us to, you probably want us just to fund the 1.25.
I mean, this is an unexpected conversation,
Sure.
honestly. It would push the project further faster, which would be really exciting. Commercial architects are putting it on their calendar already for design work, and for the project as a whole. And we're moving forward as we get this money in place. I feel really confident that we can get this money in place. This will be incredibly helpful to then focus on phase 3.
I don't want to take away any of the sense of fundraising urgency that would actually bring dollars into city
Absolutely,
space.
absolutely.
So,
Well, we still have to raise those additional funds, so that urgency.
But if we give you 1.25, it's $100,000 less that you have to raise.
Absolutely.
And I like that. But I think what Greg is saying, you're confident you're gonna be able to do that by March?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because by the city council vote, or the finance committee meeting, you have to demonstrate you have that money. Or it won't move forward at the city council level.
I tell you what, the folks so when we started off at the end of the year, we had 460,000 or something to raise. And then with the end of the year fundraising pledges coming in, we now have 280,000. When the folks that we've been talking to understand that that is whittled away further, and we only have this much to raise, that gap will be closed.
All I'm saying is, and I don't, I'm just talking about government process, not that I'm not confident in you being able to do it. But when we put it forward that you're gonna bring in 1.146, that's gonna have to be demonstrated at the time that the city council votes it.
in 3 weeks.
No,
It just gets
3 weeks
presented.
it goes to city council, then it goes to finance committee for review, 4 weeks.
So a month to raise 180,000.
So can I?
Does that make sense?
No, we need till March. I mean, we really do need that time to do the presentation.
Don't we need to show that we have it by time we sign the contract?
I'm not sure how this will work. I'm just trying to anticipate naysayer questions. They don't have the 1.146. How do we vote it? If you need till March, okay, Jamie.
So the way that we've been doing the first phase, we're not actually spending any, we're doing a 50% reimbursement. So when I get the invoice from Mike requesting $150,000 that they paid Boolingers, the city then reimburses $75,000. So the
city's not at risk.
So we won't, because the grant agreement was a 1-to-1 match. So if they don't have enough money to go out to bid to get that contractor on board between whatever the CPA decides and whatever they have in cash, then they can't sign that contract. And similarly, if the CPA, the grant agreement says 50% reimbursable, then whatever invoice we get gets reimbursed at 50%. So they've already paid out that full amount and we're reimbursing the 50%. So, and that's at some point in the future. So if you go out to bid in April and you have your contractor on board, you're not getting your first invoice maybe till May or June before the city's actually putting it in.
I think I understand. Well, no, I think I've made a mistake here. I think what Jamie is saying is they can't sign a contract until they have all their money in place.
Right.
And therefore, if we agree to give them 1.25 and the council approves it, you still can't sign a contract until you have your money. So the city's not at risk.
You know, the members of the board of directors are personally at risk if we sign a contract without funds to back it up. The city's not in any risk.
What?
You can still go out to bid, right?
Yes.
You can still go out to bid, you just can't formalize the contract.
We have sufficient
We got one
liquidity
in March
to pay
that-
for the
It's
design
gonna
work
take 3 months to a month for the.
Yeah,
and
they
the
don't.
cost of bidding.
To
But
show you.
we can't execute a contract with the contractor unless we have sufficient funds, which are going to be what you have, what the city's provided us, plus what's in the bank.
Okay, I'm convinced. I'm okay with this process. I'm not sure how procurement, the mayor, and all that will deal with it, but I think that's convincing. The city's not at risk because of the contract. I think that's the case, but it does have to go through the city's. It's a city property, so it has to go that way. But that's a little far down the road. Once we get.
No, it's the same process we just used.
Okay.
It's a Chapter 149 project. We have to go out to bid that way.
There you
go. Mike essentially supervised the level of detail in our paperwork. That's about what the city did.
And that makes me
City's
feel.
not a party to the contract.
Okay. So they're not at risk.
The city's just watching to make sure that we follow. the
And
letter
that's
of the
Mike.
law.
That's
And
Mike. Mike is the procurement officer for the city. It's Owens, Michael. And so, okay.
We've got the process down already. There'll be a few more filed sub-bids on this project than there were on the one we're just finishing now, but it's all gonna go out to bid the same way. I'm pretty comfortable that we have all the paperwork squared away, but all of that gets reviewed by the procurement officer as we put it out.
So just to review, the city's not at risk. A contract can't be signed until City Space has the funds in place to match the money that we're giving. So if we give them 1.25, whatever else you need to sign the contract, 1.146 or whatever else it is, it can't go forward until you have the money in. So we're safe in saying we'll give you 1.25. I think that's fair. Do you agree with that, Greg?
Totally.
Yeah, and the city's funds
Greg,
aren't
you're my
even
money man, so.
extended by the city until we've already paid the contract. So you're coming in at the backfill money that we've already expended.
Does anybody else have any concerns? Because
No
I'm
concern.
okay with this. You okay with this?
Clarify, if CPA votes to move the 1.25 million to retained,
to construction.
From the retained to construction. City space comes in with whatever you need to, what do you need to get to?
It's a little less than
2.29. So.
Whatever that is.
Who knows, bids could come in low.
Right, they could.
Nice
But
try.
is the city still only reimbursing at 1-to-1? Or
No,
is
it's
the
not,
city
because we're
reimbursing
giving
at,
more
like-
than they need for the full
We'll have to
construction.
recalculate the percentage.
Because the final project was what, 2.29? And now we're giving 1.25, so your match is less. So it's like,
You might be giving us 52%.
Okay.
We can calculate that once
This
we
is
know
why
what the
we want
numbers
that
are.
one-to-one match in the initial grant agreement.
Right, I mean, and that's still in the grant
Nonetheless.
agreement that went through city council.
yeah, we have to have a grant agreement done
Shut
after,
down.
and then the grant agreement comes after the city council vote to move this money.
Right, so typically we do the project funding agreement, which goes to council, just sort of outlines what
Okay,
was
yeah.
discussed, and then the grant agreement itself will be needed, so that way the city can formally contract with city space for that.
Yeah, that's always, this grant agreement is always necessary for major projects.
Can't you just do a quick amendment to it?
We haven't done a grant agreement yet, have we? Did we
I
have to
think-
do that for the 500,000?
There was something for the phase one, but then when the project funding agreement came through, there was discussions about bonding and project management and who was actually, was it the city's project or was it the city space project because of weird things with bonding that I don't
We're not
understand.
bonding anything yet.
Right, so,
Oh, is that why we needed the one-to-one, was because of the bonding aspect of it?
bonding came from CPA, I don't know who brought that up, the one-to-one.
The one-to-one.
Sorry.
The one, I think we should just do what you asked at the beginning.
But that was for phase one.
It's been all.
So it sounds like we need a new grant agreement for phase two.
It
We
would
just
be
need a new
54%.
Okay,
So we need a-
Your numbers.
What was it, 50?
Keep it flexible.
54.
So we're giving 54, they have to do 46. Jeez, my math is good stuff.
You should be chair.
Scott, shut up, because anytime, you're on the job. I'm okay with this, process-wise, as soon as you can, a narrative to Jamie,
I did send that today.
and then
I didn't see it. I'll check my.
if
I'll
you
check
could
my-
update it to include phase one, what you've done, because I think that's impressive.
It's in there.
Oh, it's in there? Okay.
Yeah, but I'll add an entry.
Okay, and secondly, a project funding agreement needs to be signed to move this, you just said that?
Yes. Do we want to, does the committee want to review that before?
The only thing in that project funding agreement is contingent on 1.25 being available. Because what we're voting on is moving money from Old Town Hall retained city match. If there's not 1.25 in there, we have to come back and figure out how we're gonna get it up to that. In other words, move it from undesignated. Does that make sense? So it could wait until the next meeting. I'm confident the money's there, but all we're voting on is to move the 1.25 out of Old Town Hall retained city match into the construction account,
And what do we have in undesignated, 1.6 right now?
something like that.
If my report's.
Okay.
And we're looking at what, maybe 250. It's there. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna let this go. It's there, because we voted on it. It's close. It might be a few thousand short because we gave you a little more in phase one, so it might be 1.246 or something.
No, we corrected that.
Oh, we
So-
did. That's
because
right.
It was the 255.
All right. We added 255. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what we're voting on. Okay? Understanding that in the project funding agreement, it's contingent on that money being available in the Old Town Hall agreement. Old Town Hall retained city match.
Need a motion?
Yeah?
Need a motion for 1.25 billion from the Old
Old
Town Hall
Town.
Found.
A retained city match to be moved to
The
Old Town Hall construction.
Old Town Hall construction.
Second.
contingent on money being
Contingent
available?
on
Do we
the
have to,
money.
do we have to have that in the motion?
I think that's the auditor's. She won't do it if it doesn't exist.
Okay, all right,
So,
whatever.
Second.
So that's a kind of, just for a discussion point, that's the safety valve right there. If it's not there, she's not gonna do it, so it has to come back to us.
she won't sign off on the transfer.
Got it.
As well, she shouldn't.
Oh,
The money's not there.
We don't want an auditor.
It is a good
you know,
policy,
just-
actually.
All right,
Don't move money you don't
so
have.
we have a motion on the floor, further discussion. Hearing none, Jamie?
Andy,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dan,
My name is Dan, yes.
John.
Aye.
All right.
All right, so, a little bit of work for you guys. There will be some things to sign. We can do it digitally still, I think, so, okay? Okay. Nothing else on the agenda. Next meeting is February 16th. We will meet because I know the clock will be on that agenda. Because I gotta meet with the mayor between now and then and see where she wants to go with this, okay?
And we need to vote on the budget.
Oh yeah, we have to do a final vote on the budget. Because Jamie's gonna knock on Hazel's door every day until she gets the answers.
Motion to adjourn? And everything else?
Now we have to vote on the budget, don't we?
No.
Oh, for the next meeting.
We're not voting
Next
on it.
meeting.
I see.
Second.
Yep. We have a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Jamie?
Aye.
No, we can't do that.
For adjournment.
Because of John, it's John's fault.
Andy,
No, I mean, yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Joe, Dan, and John.
John.
Aye.
It's been a long day.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.